Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. It's great to see we have many attendees from all over the world, I see. My name is Rutger de Jong. I work for Survey as a sales manager. And for those who don't know us, in short, Survey is a software development platform especially used to build SaaS and mobile business applications. And today we will be mainly talking about software modernization and why Survey could be of interest to you as a progress developer. But instead of us telling you all about our platform, we thought it might be more interesting to invite one of our customers over. So I want to thank Royal4 for taking part in this webinar. He will explain what he does with that technology and how it facilitates his modernizations. Before we start, a couple of housekeeping notes. We try to make this webinar as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, please ask them, and please use the chat panel, which I will be monitoring during the webinar. Also, this webinar will be recorded and shared afterwards. So if you want to look it back or you want to share it with colleagues, this is possible. Okay, let's get started. Sean, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, I just want to double check you can see the slides as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So real quickly, maybe I'm going to be interviewing Royal4, but just real quick about myself and a bit about this webinar. My name is Sean Devlin, and I help to run Survoy's North American projects, and I work closely with our customers and our partners to develop our product strategy. And I've spent more than a decade helping our partners transition their companies through changing market landscapes and often different technology disruptions. And that kind of brings me to what we'd like to discuss today. I spend a lot of time working with software vendors and enterprise application teams. And I see, really talented folks delivering high value applications, and it really distinguishes their business. But occasionally we do see that teams face challenges that require more than an incremental improvement or a new feature to their offering. It could be a market disruption or a technical barrier or some limitation to go to the next level. And it requires teams to get out of their comfort zone and explore new options, new approaches. So this webinar is really about that, and how to get out of that, or how to orient yourself in that situation. So if you are in that position, then that's good, because that's why we've made this webinar, and we've invited a guest expert to join us and talk about their experiences. So I'd like to introduce Manny from Royal4, who does a lot of their software development, and he really knows their business and their product. He's a tech guy, but I imagine he knows quite a lot about supply chain management and warehouse management. Manny, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Manny, can you tell us just kind of at a high level about Royal4 Systems and the company, and who are your customers and what kind of products you make?
Okay, well, very quick, Royal4 Systems has been, in software systems for quite some time, I think since 1994. And currently we have several systems that we sell. These are mainly a warehouse management system and an ERP system, and lately a yard management system. So we are oriented into supply chain, and all of our software offerings are towards that, right? Mm-hmm. We use Progress as our main tool. We have been using Progress since the inception of the company. When I joined the company, we were using Progress version 8, I think, and now we are in Progress version 12, and we're still going. And we have now enriched our tool arsenal with Survey, and that's where we are right now.
Great, thanks for that overview. And I think that we'll get into some details about what you're doing, but a real quick look at the high level. This is kind of the agenda of, I think, what we'd like to do, and what we believe will be compelling for our audience, is to just look at some of the applications that you've been working on as examples, and then kind of talk backwards from that about, what was your approach both in, projects, but also, your technical approach, because this is, I think, a technical audience, and people are curious about, what kind of technologies they should consider and how that works. So I'd like to go over a few of your applications and just have you kind of talk about what they are and what you're trying to achieve. The first one that I'd ask you about is eWise, and I know that customer portals are popular choices to modernize existing systems. Can you talk about the eWise product, why you created it, and how you have evolved it?
Okay, so generally we have on our warehouse management system, we have three parts. One that is was made in GUI, in Progress GUI, before we went to Servoy, and the idea of this part is to do all the order management, and expect receipt management, and inbound and outbound management of documents, right? There is another part that does the floor work, and a final part that is that looks outwards, right? And this is the part that customers of that warehouse could use to query their inventory and their orders and data that is on our system, right?
So your customers in this case.
Exactly. And this part was originally made for the web, in web speed, as many other things that are done for the web in Progress are, right? So this presented a perfect opportunity for us to create a proof of concept that had limited functionality, because it doesn't have all of the functionality of our whole system, right? So we concentrated on making first a prototype of this part of the system, and it was very successful.
Okay, so you had an existing version of this, but it was more. It wasn't like you had a problem with the existing version. It was just an ideal candidate to use to explore a different approach.
Yes.
Okay. All right. The other application that you guys worked on is to manage shipping docks and interactions with carriers via mobile devices. Was this a new offering? Can you talk about this?
Yes, as we were working on the eWise version made with Servoy, another opportunity presented itself that required us to make a system to manage a shipping yard, right? And that would be appointments for trailers coming in and out and things like that. And also it required a mobile component, right? So what we did is that we applied what we learned on eWise to make it in Servoy. We thought it would be easier, and it proved to be the right decision.
Okay, so did you have dock scheduling and management already, or this was net new functionality?
We had a previous version made in Progress, but it wasn't very complete.
Okay.
Not to the level that we worked on this one, definitely.
And
we have the beginning.
Okay, and this now really consists of two applications, because you have the mobile side for the carriers. Do these applications, do they talk to each other? Are you able to see updates between the applications?
Yes. The idea is that using the mobile application, a carrier could potentially, well, not potentially, the whole point of it is to be able to schedule appointments from the mobile application into the dock. Okay, so that somebody with the full dock application could approve the appointments and set the final time slot for them where they need to go.
Very cool.
So yeah, there is communication, and there is push messages that that tell the mobile user that their appointment has been accepted and so on.
Okay, the push notifications out to the phone.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So this.
Okay, but the big elephant here, though, is your flagship product, the warehouse management system itself.
Okay.
I understand you had the prior version of this was kind of like green screen telnet applications and on handhelds and I think Progress UI on the terminals. Can you talk about why you were looking for like a next generation offering of your, of such a complex system?
Well, the general idea is that we have been in GUI and character for, well, since the inception of the company, right? And I mean, ever since WISE was created, it's always been a composite application of part of GUI and a little part of character, right? But devices have moved forward, and we needed a more competitive edge. So we were looking to modernize the application, and we realized that we need to go to the cloud and we need to start using mobile devices. So so that's why we undertook the big task of taking our flagship product, into this type of technology.
Right. Building or modernizing such a large application can be risky. Can you talk about how you kind of took the risk out of that, or what in terms of I mean, I've seen the application; it's very comprehensive, right? And it involves two real clients going on the handhelds and the terminals. Can you talk a bit about what you were able to do to take some of the risk out and speed some of the development up?
Well, the way we did this, as you mentioned, there are other two systems that we have made, the EY's part, okay, and also the Royal 4-Yard, the yard management. So because of our application has distinct parts, we went from the smallest parts to the bigger ones, right? And what we did is precisely that, just chop the application on small parts that will provide a minimum of functionality that was required, okay, and tackle that part, and advance on small increments in providing that functionality.
Okay, and in this case, the handhelds also talk. They also talk to the terminal application as well. You're able to see broadcasting between them as well.
Oh yes, it's a one-piece system. I mean, I don't know if I'm making it sound like they're not communicating, but all of these three parts are integral parts of the system. So what you do on one, it reflects on the other.
Got it.
Immediately. That's always been a landmark for system that is real time, right? I mean, you do something on the mobile application, like picking an order, it's going to show up on the main screen. You release an order, it's immediately available on the mobile.
Right.
So it's all one application. It's just different parts of an application that communicate, and it's all seamless.
And the my understanding of the handheld portion, the mobile portion, is that you guys can run this on ruggedized mobile or like scanners, handheld scanners, and things like that.
Yes, that's one of the requirements for business. I mean, the warehouse environments can be anywhere from really dry and simple to very cold and sub-zero, and require special devices. But if this device has now it's an Android enabled, for example, or it has a good HTTP browser, now it can run the application, no problem. Before it was limited to relatively old hardware.
Okay, so anything Android now works.
This allows us to use newer models of ruggedized devices that were there before, and not only that, but exploit their capabilities properly.
Got it. Okay, very cool. maybe we can take a step back a bit and just look at the overall process that I think you're sort of describing here. And Manny, we met during a proof of concept that we did together a few years ago, and I think it's important for the audience to know the process that Royal 4 took, because I believe that the order of the projects that you selected and the path that you chose is just as important as the technical stuff, which we are going to get into. Can you talk a bit about, I know you mentioned it a little bit on one of the slides of the applications, but can you talk a bit about, how you kind of built up to a full software factory modernizing applications from, just an initial exploration?
Okay, so what we did, as I mentioned, was to take the smallest piece that we could develop as a unit. In this case, it was UIs, okay? And we planned how we were going to use the progress functionality that it has and what we could offer on the UI side, on the web browser. So putting that boundary that this is what we are going to do, only that particular piece, we work towards achieving it. We separated our logic, whatever it wasn't separated, and ready to be called from Servoy. And once we put everything together, we drove towards that minimum viable product you have on the screen. We had Servoy, help us out with any technical challenges or questions that we had, until we had a full product that we could use in conjunction with our current version of WISE. So instead of using the existing previously available version of EWISE, now we could use these EWISE instead. And from there we moved on to the next product, to the next part of the system that will provide that encapsulated functionality that you can deliver, right? That's how we were. We were moving piece by piece until we move everything that we need.
Right, and I think what's compelling about this approach is that that you guys were able to take some of the risk out of, some of the unknowns out of this, and prove it on a real application, and then add smaller applications first that you took completely to production. My understanding is that you're selling things like the doc scheduler that we saw, and that deploys side by side with the core system, which is not fully modernized yet. Is that correct? Like the ERP modules, and it's a really big application suite. So,
well, that's the thing that we haven't talked about yet. But Royal 4 doesn't only sell a warehousing management system; it also sells ERP, and the ERP is a bigger product, and it also has, let's say, like families of modules that work together. And what we do is that we have separated these families together, and we make one family work completely well. For example, accounting. Then you can move into production and so on, right? So people that are familiar with ERP and will know that there are modules that work together. Okay, and what we do is separate these on the minimum possible set of functionality that we need to port, so to speak, and then move it in. Work on that until that's squared out and completely correct, and now then move to the next one.
Right. So you're kind of iterating on each module or product. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, the thing with the yard management is that it has the great advantage that it's designed to operate on its own, okay, and it can communicate with WISE and with other systems. So it's a bit outside of the whole diagram, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Manny, I think I've got a question for you from the audience.
Yeah.
Somebody is asking, did you also consider other tools for this modernization projects?
Yeah, we went through an evaluation of several products that were available to us.
Mm-hmm.
We tried to also make a smaller set of proof of concept functionality and test it and see how it was going to how it was going to work for us. And we found really capable tools around. Like for example, we tested a couple web speed based frameworks and also Kendo UI, and we settled on Servoy because it had an extra edge.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we evaluated other tools as well.
Did you also look at open source tools? Somebody's asking.
Did we look at open source tools?
Like React or Angular or something like that?
More a from scratch approach without a platform.
That is one thing that we really didn't want to do. The from scratch approach. That's what I'm meaning.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we were trying to find when we were evaluating products is this. Okay, we're coming from a GUI system that has and I think a lot of people that are on Progress and have been on Progress for a while have developed their own application framework to deliver their application. That is a subsystem that has all the menuing, security, printing, reporting, translation, and many other things that are required for a business application to work. So when you start from scratch, well, you have to build everything up, right? So one of the things that we were looking at is that the platform that we will choose will have. I mean, we understood that maybe the application framework was not going to be there complete or with all of the bells and whistles that we have developed over 20, 30 years of working, right? But we wanted a system that will have components available and would be easily extensible, and that was one of the things that we found in Servoy that we liked. So yes, we didn't consider going from scratch because it was going to be prohibitively expensive for us to go and develop all of the things that we needed as an application framework.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe one last question before we move on. Somebody is asking, how did your company manage the existing ERP which need maintenance, together with transitioning to Servoy and to a web approach? So did you, for instance, create a new team especially for the Servoy and the web, apart from the team that was maintaining the ERP, or how did you manage that?
Yes, that's basically what has happened to not only the ERP but with all of our applications. A team is working on now maintenance releases or just maintenance patches, so to speak, of the current application. Okay, mm-hmm. And we are developing with another team, on Servoy and getting new functionality into the new version of the product that is now on Servoy.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Well, I think maybe we get to the part that this audience is probably most interested in, the how.
Okay.
And I created this diagram based on my understanding of the way things have worked, as kind of a centerpiece for just having a conversation and a chance for our audience to dive a bit deeper. But okay. Obviously, Manny, you wanted to leverage as much as possible from your core system, and you took two key approaches to do that. Can you discuss kind of the two ways that you were able to reuse part of your OpenEdge setup to bring these modern applications?
Okay, well, I mean, as you mentioned, we wanted to leverage as much Progress as we have. I mean, our personnel, well, they all know Progress. I mean, they are Progress professionals for a long time. Okay, they know the database and they know ABL and 4EL. So the idea here was to keep as much business logic as possible and to keep our database, right? So as the diagram mentions, Servoy and the Servoy stack are going to be there for to provide the UI, okay, and it will go to the database through SQL access, okay, but the most of our business logic that will do the heavy processing of the data and all of the big operations and transactions will run close to the database and still work on ABL. So what we did was to separate this logic. I mean, we were a bit lucky, okay, that the architecture of our GUI system has a lot of program libraries and super procedures and things that have already been separated from the UI. So what we did was just expose them through a REST adapter using the Progress application server. Okay, and that that provided a good way to leverage all of that years of Progress programs and libraries that we have, right? So that sits together in one piece, and the other piece is Servoy was displaying our data and providing a UI, and also calling those procedures when heavy process is needed. And by providing that UI, we go to the right side of your diagram, which is native desktop clients and Android and iOS accessing the application, via a web browser or a native application using Servoy. So that describes it all pretty well.
Okay, Manny, the part about the REST adapter or creating REST endpoints, I think was pretty critical in your strategy because then you can reuse that business logic. Is that something that any Progress developer or any Progress setup can enable? What do you have to do to make that work?
I think so. I think that if you have already a procedure in Progress that you can isolate into a .p, then you can write a wrapper to make it REST callable, so to speak. So that's one thing if you already have it. But if you don't have it, removing the UI from your process can be, I mean, it's work, but it's definitely not prohibitive, right? I mean, it's doable. Mm-hmm. So you can make a library of functions based on very monolithic programs if you still have those, because at some point, I mean, we found some on the ERP that were pretty old and were like that, okay? And they can be, the logic can be extracted, the UI can be taken out, okay? And they can be made procedures, right? And if you have that procedure, you are ready to be able to wrap it in some newer ABL to be able to call it on a REST adapter.
Mm-hmm. I think you called it code surgery once. I found funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, so yes, you have to take all the important code out and do a little bit of surgery and make it into a new program that doesn't have UI and just receives the parameters, does its job, and gets out. It depends on the complexity of the application that you're talking about. I mean, different people have different types of context that they need to keep up and stuff like that. But I mean, that definitely is for everybody's application, right? To analyze and decide what you need to keep and what not. But what we did with our code was that, I mean, the things that were already separated into procedure libraries and super procedures and persistent procedures that we had on Progress, things like that. Well, these were just pretty much a shoe-in, right? I mean, we just put them on in memory and write a progress code to call this library, so we can keep using the same code pretty much.
And did you do that work up front, like completely, or are you able to do it incrementally as you build each one of these?
No, we were able to do it incrementally. I mean, the nice thing about the things that we had separated first, okay, is that we just put them all together and we started calling them. But for example, there were things that we didn't write a wrapper for until we needed them. So it is incremental. I mean, you can go and just put your procedures on available on a REST adapter, even if you don't have a way to call them yet. Okay, but just put them there, and when you need to write the wrapper, you can write it. That's pretty much it.
Yes, maybe you can talk a bit about the difference between the two approaches. One, going to the database and versus using REST, and you've used both of them at the same time, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you can talk about why you use both and under what circumstances you choose each approach.
I'm not exactly sure I understand the question, but
okay. So I maybe my understanding is wrong, but you also build screens that go through SQL access to the database, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing with Servo is that it does access that way to SQL. So for all of our UI needs, okay, we are accessing the database through SQL. Okay. Servo is taking care of looking at that data and presenting it on the screen, which is the part that you have on Servo stack, right? So yes, we are looking at the database. For example, if you want to see orders or expected receipts in our system, right? I mean, you're going to be looking at a database through Servo, right? Now, imagine that then you want to trigger a process, okay, on one order. You want to release it to the floor that has to go and look at inventory and do many things that are data heavy, right? So what it does is that you take that information from the screen, like the number of the order, and then you call the REST adapter. Now you say, okay, do this process for that particular order. So that's pretty much how you can make an example of this type of calls.
So by doing a kind of mixed or hybrid approach, you get the best of both approaches.
Exactly. We have a really good UI, on the web, okay, and this UI can call really crazy transaction-heavy processes on the REST side, on the database side, so to speak. So it lives close to the database.
Very cool.
Manny, a question from the audience about how much time did it took you guys to get a setup up and running?
To get the setup up and running, I mean, this was a bit trial and error, but I mean, if by setup you mean the REST adapter to work, or I'm not entirely sure.
Well, I think this architecture is what he means. So the connecting Servoy to your Progress backend.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, Servoy, the setup for Servoy to read the data is just setup. So I mean, you can do this in 20 minutes. Yeah. Now, how can we quantify this? I guess to get the ball rolling at the beginning of the project, when we didn't know anything about this, it took us a few weeks of trial and error to get things going and wrap the first couple of libraries around and get all the connectivity going. But once you do it, I mean, this is an experience you have once, right? And once you do it, pretty much the rest of the things start falling in place together. So it's a bit difficult to quantify, but it didn't take us much. You know, I'll say that in a matter of a week we're already set up and had you know interesting results to show.
Makes sense. And did you, somebody's asking, did you use the OpenEdge reference architecture in the past, or did you use it in this?
No, we didn't use the OpenEdge reference architecture because we didn't need to do you know REST wrappers to access the data. That is done on this SQL access part of the diagram and the data binding engine, so to speak. So we didn't need to write code for entities and things like that. That part we just went from Servoy directly to the database. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess this is interesting because quite some questions are coming in.
Sure.
One question from somebody who obviously also knows Servoy. He is asking, did you lose some of Servoy's benefits by working with your existing ABL-REST endpoints, like data broadcasting? And data broadcasting is one of the
no, we didn't lose that, because what we did is that we realized that we need to synchronize the clients or Servoy and Progress when we run heavy logic on the REST adapter side. So what I'm trying to say is that yes, there is this part when you are running things outside of Servoy. Okay, that Servoy is going to need to be notified that a change on the data was done, but there is a mechanism for it, right? So what you do is that after the REST call, if you know what you need to refresh, you just pretty much refresh it in one line of code, and on your way you go. So that's what we ended up doing, and that way we don't lose any data broadcasting functionality from Servoy. I guess this would be clear for the people that use Servoy, but for the people that haven't used it, that probably won't make sense. But I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, maybe one last question before we move on, about the client. Somebody's asking how is this client, the server client, generated? Do I have to write HTML5? Is there a specific program language? Can you tell something about that, or maybe Sean, or both?
Well, Sean.
Yeah, I can handle that one. So the box there we have that says ng clients. That's Servoy's next generation client, our HTML5 client, and to build the UI is a drag and drop. What you see is what you get experience, and that's to design the UI, and that's pretty agnostic of what the front end technology is. So a lot of people might assume that Servoy is like a front end framework, but it's actually a complete stack, and it generates a client at runtime from simple metadata. And to that effect, we actually have customers that have been able to maintain their same code base for many years because, when HTML5 dies, there will be something to replace it, but the Servoy application keeps running because we generate the client dynamically from simple metadata. So it kind of lets developers escape that modernization trap and just focus on building screens and running logic. So no HTML5 coding is needed. The programming language is just very simple JavaScript APIs, and not JavaScript in the browser like front end JavaScript, but just a pure server side scripting API to call the many libraries that are included.
There are some more questions left, but I think it's good to move on because we have we have a demo which probably will answer some of those as well.
No, there's no demo.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. No. We decided just to show the screenshots and talk a bit more about architecture.
Yeah. Then I think by that some of those will be answered as well. Yeah.
Yeah. There are quite a few questions I see on deployment and cloud, and I think that's something we kind of glossed over. Manny, do you deploy these applications on premise, or do you host them for your customers, or do you put it in their cloud for them? How does that work?
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that this modernization opened up for us. Before we were mostly on premise, and right now we can still do on prem, but we have also been deploying this on the cloud. So this has accelerated a little bit, our sales cycle, and allow us to do a faster implementation in some respects. So so yes, I mean, right now we are deploying this on the cloud, and our customers can use the system there.
Okay. There was another question. Do you deploy like a multi-tenant single instance, or are these all separate instances per customer?
They are separate instances because of how our original design is. The interesting part is that, for example, for our R4 yard management system, this is a multi-tenant solution.
Okay.
So we have been able to do both. But WISE is single tenant because of the architecture of the system, how it works. So it's more of an internal design decision in WISE. So why is this single tenant?
Yeah, and I can say that across our other customers, which include progress-based customers and other backgrounds, we see a big mix of deployment options, multi-tenancy options, or multi-instance options. So both can be supported.
Both can be supported, and we use them both. I mean, as I mentioned, the R4 yard is a multi-tenant application. We have several tenants, on a single deployment, currently running this system.
Very cool. Yeah, well, I think Manny, the attendees appreciate you being here, because there's quite a lot of questions. But in the sake of time, yeah, maybe we can talk a bit about what you're working on lately. I know you guys have been doing various integrations, and that's been a focus recently, integrating with other systems, commercial systems. What are you excited about these days? What keeps you up at night? What's in the pipeline?
So mostly what we're working on right now is just refining our warehousing system, which is pretty much finished. We were just just polishing it pretty much. And on the pipeline, we have the ERP, which is also has several of the modules have been already developed and they're in testing right now. So we are going towards moving all of our applications into this architecture. And as you mentioned, I mean, this has also opened the door for different types of customers now, and there's a lot of requests and a lot of possibilities for integration with other systems and with e-commerce, especially. So because Servoy allows to write this integration a little bit easier than in progress, we are writing it there, and we are making really good progress on that.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure, Manny, to have you, and I really appreciate you, explaining your story. I hope that it was compelling for the attendees who maybe in a similar situation that Royal 4 was a few years ago, and maybe evaluating their options, and hopefully it gives them some insight on what's possible, and what has worked and what doesn't, from someone who's been there. And so again, thanks so much. I really appreciate you being here and helping us with this.
Oh, my pleasure.
yeah, I would be remiss and punished by the marketing department if I didn't quickly sum things up with a bit about who is Servoy, and if for those of you who are interested, there's a rumor that Servoy was started by 5 guys in a windmill. Might be true, but I don't know. The point is that it was founded in the Netherlands and then in the U.S. Shortly after that, about 20 years ago. And basically, our founders also had a 4GL background, and what we used to be called RAD, so tools like Progress. And they became frustrated by the lack of modernization options way back then, even just to have a browser-based application, or to do what was called, I think, ASP way long ago, which later became called SAS. So that is where Servoy comes from, and I think as a result, we really understand business critical applications, complex applications, and software vendors and enterprise application teams. The product is really a full stack solution. It's not just a front end framework, and it does contain a lot of the non-functional requirements needed for modern business applications, such as localization and multi-tenancy and all of that stuff. Point is that we work exclusively with software vendors and enterprise application teams, and our focus is on providing a vendor-supported platform to assist with modernization efforts of systems and building new complex systems. So that's kind of our bread and butter, and yeah, we like to sink our teeth into the challenge of modernization and all the all the challenges that poses. So if you'd like to know more about maybe how you can get started on your modernization journey, we are offering a promotional special through next month. We can do a consultation. We can look at your application or your ideas about where you'd like to take your applications. If you are already in the mindset that you have a proof of concept or prototype that you'd like to explore, similar to how Royal 4 did that, we can do those at a discount by October 15th. So those in the former times used to include even a site visit where we'd sit down with your team and build some things together and give you experience on how it could work, and really help you to evaluate if Servoy is the right choice for you. But we can still do those as kind of an intense session together that can span anything from 2 days to a couple weeks, depending on the complexity. So if you have a big application, we have our assurance program, which I think maybe we mentioned once or twice. There's the service or kind of arm of Servoy that can help with de-risking big implementations and planning and executing. Yeah, you can contact us for questions about licensing as well. I think that's everything. Rutger, do I miss anything?
No, I think this is complete for now. Yeah, I want to express that if you want to reach out to us, if you know somebody within Servoy, call him or her directly. If not, dial us or mail us at sales@servoy.com. And maybe one last remark. Somebody is thanking all of us and says it was a great webinar and has a potential prospect for Royal 4. So that's one for many.
Awesome. We want to hear from you, definitely.
And you should be in touch, definitely. All right. Yeah. Last word from me. Thanks all for watching, and looking forward to get in touch.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Manny. Bye for now.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.